Good afternoon, everyone. In today's lecture, we are going to go ahead and continue with the concept of linear programming. Particularly, I am going to go ahead and I am going to talk about what is primal and dual. We have already understood how to solve the question related to linear programming. Today, we want to go ahead and we want to talk about primal and dual. Right, beta? Okay. So question is, what happens when the availability of resources change? So just try to understand and try to refer back to the previous lecture. So we said we have 1 kg of flour. And then we had counted our equilibrium. In this equilibrium, the equilibrium of x1 star and x2 star were 5, 22.5. What happens when the availability of the resources change? क्या होता है जब मैं अपने constraints को change कर दूं? When I go ahead and change the constraints. So you remember here when I was making this table, just come back here. When we talked about these tables, then here I had written that, whatever flour you use for cake A, plus whatever flour you use for cake B, the total must be less than equal to 150. This was the availability of flour, which was subject to 150. It was restricted to 150 kgs. Now I'm asking what will happen if I add one more unit to it. So if instead of 150, I now have 151 kgs. So if you remember, when we were finding the equilibrium yesterday, we showed that we were at point B. B was our equilibrium point. And at that B, flour and butter were completely being used. हम लोग flour को और butter को completely use कर रहे थे. And there was excess of sugar. But now what will happen when I add one more unit of flour to it? अगर मैं flour के एक unit को बढ़ा दूं, then what is going to go ahead and happen? That is what the question is. That is what we are asking. So try to see that now my equation will be 3x1 plus 6x2 less than equal to 151. So beta, if I just now look at the intercepts, what is going to happen? When I will put x2 as 0, if I put 0 here, then I will get x1 as 151 by 3 instead of 150 by 3. Beta, if I put x1 as 0 here, अगर मैं ये 0 put करती हूँ, I will get x2 as 151 by 6. These will be my 2 points. So you can clearly see that this, if you just go ahead and solve this, so beta 151 by 3 करना है अब हमें ना. So 151 divided by 3, this gives you 50.34, right? And 151 divided by 6, this gives you 25.167. So if you can clearly see, earlier my intercepts were 50 and 25. ये मेरे intercepts थे. Now my intercepts are changing. They are 50 and 50.3 and 25.16. That means that there is going to be a shift to the right. ये बात clear हुई? So if I just go back to my plotting where I had plotted this. Where did we plot this? Here. This is what I had plotted yesterday. Now just leave everything else. Just focus on this flour equation. ये हमने कल plot किया था. So now what will happen is, now I have this as 25.167 and I have this as 50.34. So slightly upward shift will be seen. Now this will be my line. बस इतना ही तो होगा. This line will shift upwards. Now look at the equation. My equation is 3x1 plus 6x2 less than equal to 151. So beta, I will put again x1 as 0, x2 as 0, and I will get 0 plus 0 less than equal to 151. So this is true now. So when you will see that this is true, you will shade towards the origin. So ये line से now you will shade towards the origin. So you will start shading towards the origin with respect to the new purple line now. ये बात clear हुई? So if I just go back to my interpretation today, so the graph will shift outside. Gradually, it will shift a bit outside. So if you see this dotted line now, no, this is my new line. This has this point as 25.167 and this point as 50.34. ये इसके नए points हो गए बेटा. So now I will start shading from this line towards the origin like this. Other curves also I had to shade towards the origin. So if you see the purple one is also shaded towards the origin. And if you will see this sugar one, all three are shaded towards the origin. So beta, now if you will see what is the common region, you will notice that the common region is this. This will come out to be your common region. Now notice something very important in this common region. I will just remove this so that things are a little less messy. So I will just see that what happened is earlier point B was this beta. But now point B has changed. The point of intersection now has changed. The intersection coordinate has changed. And what is this intersection coordinate showing you? What is this B dash showing you? कौन से दो curves है इस पे जो intersect कर रहे हैं? If I notice at B dash, this butter curve, 27.5, 27.5, and this flower curve. These two lines are intersecting with each other at this point B dash. So flower का equation क्या है? 3x1 plus 6x2 is equal to 151. And butter का equation क्या है? Same. x1 plus x2 is equal to 27.5. So beta, when you will try to solve these two equations simultaneously, just find out the value ना. यहाँ से put x2 is equal to 27.5 minus x1. Put it in this equation. Get the entire equation in x1 and solve. So you will get that x1 will be 14 by 3 and then you can solve back for x2. यहाँ पर डाल देना 27.5 minus 14 by 3. So you will get 137 by 6. So you will get this as x1 and x2. Beta, what was your objective function? क्या था objective function? It was z is equal to 20x1 plus 30x2. I have already got new x1, x2 यहाँ पे 14 by 3 and 20, 125, 137 by 6. So when you will put 14 by 3 here and 137 by 6 here, you will get the new objective function का जो value आएगा, वो आएगा 775 plus 10 by 3. In other words, आपका जो new objective function का value आएगा ना बेटा, that will come down as 778.34. ऐसी कुछ आएगी. So I can just break this back and I can say this is 775 plus 3.34. So 775 plus 10 by 3. अब इसको बहुत ध्यान से हमें इंटरप्रेट करना है. We need to interpret this very carefully. Note that earlier when I had 150 kgs of flour, the maximum revenue that I was generating was 775. When I had 150 kgs of flour, the maximum revenue, in some way, maximum revenue I was generating was 775. So the maximum value, I can say that with flour as 150 kgs, sugar as 22, and butter as 27.5, the maximum profit you were generating was 775. Now beta, what I did is I increased flour by 1 unit. मैंने flour को एक unit से बढ़ा दिया है. So with flour as 151 kgs, sugar as 22 and butter as 27.5. बाकी चीजों को intact रखा है. Nothing else is changing. My new profit is 775 plus 10 by 3. तो बेटा profit कितने से बढ़े? How much is the increase in the profit that you see? We see that profit increased, or the change in profit that I see here is 10 by 3. When did that happen? When I increased the flour by 1 unit. So increase of flour by 1 unit increases the profits or the revenue by 10 by 3 units. This is what I have done here. This. Haan beta. So this is saying that an extra kg of flour increases your optimal profits by 10 by 3 units. Same, you can identify different things. Suppose I go ahead and I increase the butter by 1 kg. तो बेटा butter 27.5 की जगह पर I will put as 28.5. So what will happen now in that case? So if I just go back to these equations, then in that case, this is going to happen. Let me just plot it a bit. Beta. So now what will happen is the following. This is your butter ka curve. Now I'm asking what happens when butter increases by 1 unit. So if you increase your butter by 1 unit, your curve, let me make it via green, your curve will shift outwards. This will be 1 unit se bada na, so 28.5, 28.5. Now, beta, if you go ahead and you see the intersection points, those intersection points will again change, right? Those intersection points will again change. So when those intersection points will go ahead and change, we want to go ahead and we want to see what those new intersection points will be. कि now where butter and flour curve will be intersecting with each other, हमें वो generate करना है. We want to go ahead and we want to generate that, right? So then you can do a similar analysis. कैसे करेंगे बेटा? So instead of this being 27.5 ना, you will put here 28.5. And after putting 28.5 here, you will say, okay, x2 is equal to 28.5 minus x1. You will put that in this equation. So 3x1 plus 6, 28.5 minus x1 is equal to 150. You will get x1 as 7 and x2 as 21.5. Then beta, you will try to find the profit. So when you will try to find the profit, it was what? 20x1 plus 30x2. So it will be 20 into 7 plus 30 into 21.5. So beta, when you will go ahead and find this value, you will get the answer as 785. Again, let's try to see what has happened. So try to see here. Now what I am saying is the following. I am saying that, when my flour was 150, when my sugar was 22 and butter was 27.5, the maximum profit I was making was 775. Now, when my flour is 150, sugar is 22, but butter is 28.5. When I increase butter by 1 unit, then my new profit is 785. So my profits change by 10. And when are my profits changing by 10? They are changing by 10 when butter is changing by 1 unit. So when you change butter by 1 unit, when you increase butter by 1 unit, your profits increase by 10 units. Beta, will there be any impact when you change sugar? No. Why? Why there will be no impact? Because sugar was never fully utilized. If you just go back to our previous analysis, in the last class, I showed that, when I just talk here, sugar was already in surplus. I was never using sugar completely. We had 22 kgs of sugar, and in the optima, we were only using 16.25 kgs of sugar. We were never using sugar completely. So, if we were not using sugar completely, then it means that even if I increase sugar to 23 kgs, it will not change anything. It will not increase my profit. जब मैं पहले ही सारी शुगर नहीं यूज कर रही हूँ तो शुगर को बढ़ा के फायदा क्या? पहले ही सारी शुगर नहीं यूज हो रही, एक और केजी शुगर दे भी दोगे, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू चेंज एनीथिंग. So this is exactly what has happened here, huh, beta? So if I change the amount of sugar, because sugar was already in excess, sugar was not completely utilized anyway, so your profits will not change. So this is what I have written here. By increasing sugar, profit does not change at all because baker already had sugar in surplus. Baker ka jo sugar tha, it was already in surplus. Now try to combine the things together and try to see these things together, beta. This is U1 star. U1 star is representing how my profits change when my flour change by 1 unit. But this is U2 star. This represents how my profits change when there is change in sugar by 1 unit. They will not change. Then beta, this is U3 star. How my profits change when my butter changes by 1 unit. यही हमने अभी निकाला है कैसे कैसे profits change होंगे. These values that we have found out, U1 star, U2 star, U3 star, these values are called as marginal profits. क्या बोलते हैं इनको? Marginal profits. So what is marginal profit telling us? Marginal profit tells us what will be the change in profit when, जो भी आप रिसोर्स की बात कर रहे हो, whether it is flour, whether it is sugar, whether it is butter, when a resource changes by 1 unit. So when a resource changes by 1 unit, जब हम resource को 1 unit से change करते हैं, how much will my profit change? That beta is called as the marginal profit. Okay. Now try to see. I am doing something very important here. Because these were my initial equations. That this is the amount of flour used in cake A plus the amount of flour used in cake B should be less than equal to total flour. Amount of sugar used in cake A plus cake B less than equal to total sugar. Amount of butter used in cake A plus cake B less than equal to total butter. These were my initial equations. I am going ahead and multiplying the corresponding marginal profits on both sides. तो बेटा फ्लावर की वजह से marginal profit कितना बढ़ रहा था? 10/3. This is what I proved. शुगर की वजह से marginal profit कितना बढ़ रहा था? 0. This is what we showed. And butter की वजह से marginal profit कितना बढ़ रहा था? It was changing by 10. So these marginal profits I am multiplying on both sides. So this side I am multiplying by 10/3, 10/3. 0, 0, 10, 10. I am multiplying the marginal profits on both the sides. And after multiplying the marginal profits, I am adding the three equations together. ध्यान से देखना बेटा. Again, I am repeating what I have done. This is very important, very, very important. ध्यान से सुनो. Beta, step 1. We were given to maximize 20x1 plus 30x2 less than equal to, sorry, 20x1 plus 30x2. We had to go ahead and we had to maximize this. And we had a constraint subject to, there were 3 constraints that we had. Beta, what was the first constraint? 3x1 plus 6x2 less than equal to 150. What is the second constraint we had? x1 plus 0.5x2 less than equal to 22. And third constraint क्या था बेटा? x1 plus x2 less than equal to 27.5. ये 3 constraints थे. इसको मुझे maximize करना था. ये तो हमें पता है बात. अच्छा बेटा, then what we did? We said, look, if this changes to 151 ना, अगर flour 1 unit से बढ़ जाएगा, तो my profits will change by 10/3. Then I said, if this increases to 23 na, the profits will remain unchanged. Then we said, if this increases to 28.5 na, the profits will change by 10. ये हमने marginal profits निकाले. We just found these out. Then we said, beta, okay, now whatever will be these marginal profits, just go ahead and multiply those. So I am saying that multiply this by 10/3 on both sides. Multiply this with 0 on both sides. And multiply this with 10 on both sides. And add. So beta, first equation से क्या आएगा? If I just multiply this, 10x1 plus 20x2 less than equal to 500. Second equation से आएगा 0 और third से आएगा 10x1 plus 10x2 less than equal to 275. And if I add them together, तो क्या आ जाएगा बेटा? 20x1 plus 30x2 less than equal to 775. बेटा, ये जो 775 आया है, isn't this the exact maximum profit you were getting? जो आपका maximum profit आया था, if I just go back to this here, the maximum profit I was getting was 775. So I have been able to come to the same conclusion. मुझे same conclusion ही मिल रहा है. And what is that conclusion? That this profit that I have, it cannot exceed 775. So what are these U1 star, U2 star, U3 stars called now? These U1 star, U2 star, U3 star, they are solution to the dual of the problem. मतलब ये जो problem हमने create की थी, अगर मैं इसका dual create करूं, अब धीरे धीरे हम इस पे आएंगे बेटा, what is a dual? But if I go ahead and I create a dual to this problem, तो ये जो dual create होगा, whatever dual would be created, uska solution, the solution to the dual of the problem will be these U1 star, U2 star and U3 stars that I have just found out. So U1 star, U2 star, U3 star को dual बोलते हैं, solution to the dual of the problem बोलते हैं. You see, we are coming up to the same result. तो हमने कहाँ से शुरू किया और हम कहाँ तक पहुंचे? You have to try and interpret this thing, बेटा. We started by maximizing profit subject to some constraints. हमारा maximum profit 775 आया. फिर हमने marginal profits निकाले. उन marginal profits को हमने constraint से multiply किया और constraint से multiply करने के बाद हमने उन constraints को add किया और constraint को add करके हमें हमारा objective function मिल गया. So हम constraint से objective function पे वापस पहुंच गए. We reached back to the objective function using the addition of these constraints. So somehow you have to use your mind that I am moving in a reverse direction now. I am going from the constraints to back to the objective function. So it is reversing the process, right? So beta, that is exactly a dual. How can we create a dual? To create the dual, we need to reverse the problem of the baker. जो baker की problem है, हमें उसको reverse करना पड़ेगा. We need to reverse and see